Hi, Jody. I think I interacted with you on Twitter earlier. Am I right? Welcome, Leslie. Okay, good. I was going to start by asking how everyone feels about Flipgrid. I don't want to go over things people already know, but at the same time, I don't think I'm an expert per se. I have used it more this year than any other year, though. So, hey, Sarah. I think I interacted with you earlier today. I'm trying to figure out if I want the YouTube chat on my screen here, like a split screen, or on the iPad. So I have both, and now I see like three of me, and it's just it's throwing me through a loop. So I just need to make a decision. I think I'm going to use the iPad. This is just a little weird. Thanks, Sarah. Let me see if I can get myself set up here. I'm kind of glad you're saying you haven't used Flipgrid before, because I'm not, I mean, I've used it, but I'm not an expert, I don't think. So I don't know. There's always that fear that when you're talking about something that somebody in your audience knows more than you, kind of like kids in your class. I think that's why I teach fourth grade and not higher. Hey, Carla. Thanks. I'm a big fan of GIFs. If you talk to anybody that works with me or knows me, I use them all the time, and I would probably just communicate through those if I could. I've tried, actually. It is a GIF, yes. About halfway through the year, I learned how to incorporate those into Google Slides. So that turned into my morning slide that would be up on my smart board whenever my kids would come in. I would have a different GIF every day. Thanks, Jordan, for backing me up on that. I didn't make the GIF. I can even show you how to do that, actually. It is just, hang on, I'll show you really quick. We have time. Let's see. Share screen. So if you are in a slide and you are wanting to put in a GIF, which that one is kind of hard to find. If you search flip GIFs, you get a lot of people flipping you off. So I don't recommend that as the search. but let's say we want to do a puppy GIF. You just search, make sure you include GIF at the end of your search, and then go to images. So then you find, this guy looks cute. Some of them, when you click on, they don't actually end up being GIFs. So I don't know if this, here we go. Look at that guy. So what you do normally, if you were wanting to use a picture, you would just copy and paste the image. But since this is a GIF, you need to right click, and instead of saying copy image or save image as, you want to copy the image address. So you copy that, and then when you go back to your slide, if you hit insert image by URL and you paste the URL there from the GIF, it'll bring up the GIF that you chose, and then you insert it. And that's just automatic. It'll just keep looping. You don't have to do anything else to it. So when you're in present mode, there it is. Pretty easy. Let me get back to my normal screen. Let's stop for now. Okay. Looks like we have about 5 more minutes. If you're in the chat and you haven't already, you can feel free to introduce yourself, and then also share your feelings on where you are with Flipgrid, whether you've done it before or you never have. It's just something you're interested in, or you use it a lot and you're just here for ideas. That'll just give me an idea. I don't want to talk about something that you already know and then have you all sit there and say, well, we already know this. So if you can, just give me a little background on who you are and yeah, what you know about Flipgrid already. Welcome, Gail. I have my iPad here too, if you're new, that I'm looking off the screen here for the chat. So if I'm looking off to the side, it's because I'm reading what you're saying. Michelle, how long have you been at Crossroads? Welcome, Melissa and Aaron. Hey, Tiffany. Melissa, my sister just got hired at River Ridge, so maybe you'll get to work with her. She's going to be 3rd grade there. Hey, Jessica. Nice. Oh, Carla, that's a good idea. Alternative homework kindness project. Kids uploaded acts of kindness videos. That's a good idea. Hi, Kelly. Welcome, Ashley. Elizabeth, I'm 4th grade too, so hopefully I can give you some good ideas, or maybe we can collaborate at some time next year with Flipgrid. Okay, Michelle, I did a practicum there. It was a long time ago now. With Linda Neltner was my cooperating teacher. I think it was 2nd grade. Talent show tryouts. That's a good idea. We'll start in about 2 minutes. If you haven't introduced yourself yet, feel free to do that. And then also kind of share your background on what you feel about Flipgrid if you've ever used it before. or if there's something in particular that you're wanting to learn, or if you're just wanting to see how it all works. My plan is to kind of show you the basic things of how to use it, but then also just things I've done in my classroom this year, and then hopefully you get some ideas from that. Oh, okay. I was thinking Crossroads in Campbell County. Welcome, Carrie. Thank you for being here. We'll start in about another minute. Yeah, I get it, Erin. I have a paid version, but I had won it in a contest, so otherwise I'd be using free. I love Kid President. Hey, Jen. Are you at some of you today being a roadie? We have a lot of Team Kenton in this track. Kind of excited. All right. It's about that time, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I don't know if, hey, Carrie, I don't know if I will take up this whole time. My goal is to just show you some basics of Flipgrid and things that I've done with it, and just what a useful tool it can be in the classroom. If you have questions along the way, I have the chat on my iPad next to me, so I'll check that often. If there's anything that you want to see, or if you have ideas of how you've used it before, then please feel free to share at any time. So I will go ahead and share my screen with you. If you start at the agenda and you're in that session 3, there's a link for the slide. And that's just a place for me to kind of put the things that I wanted to share with you. So hopefully you can use it as a resource later. Hoping everything works okay. They had just recently set all of the Flipgrid videos to be password protected over the summer, just to protect our student identity. So I'm hoping that the videos will play on your end, but if not, I will play them for you here and then see if I can download them later and add them to the slides. But if you don't know me already, my name is Katelyn Callahan. I am a 4th grade teacher at Taylor Mill Elementary. I teach reading, writing, and social studies for 4th grade. And if you had caught my session earlier, I was in the elementary track this morning. So thank you for joining me if you were in that spot already. So we're going to go over flipping for Flipgrid, teaching 21st century skills with Flipgrid. Like I said, if at any point that you have any questions or anything, feel free to just drop them in the chat, and then I will do my best to keep up. I'll be the first one to say I wouldn't call myself an expert. I've used Flipgrid a lot this year in different ways, just trying to play around with a lot of different things. So I'm hoping that you can at least walk away today with some inspiration. So obviously we're using Flipgrid as a way to teach those 21st century skills. So I thought it'd be a good idea to just remind us of those 4 C's and those super skills that we know our students need to learn. We need to go above and beyond what we're already teaching as far as our standards go. And there are other skills that they obviously need to be developing. Those 4 C's, if you're unfamiliar with it, if you just search 4 C's for education, it'll bring up a lot of research and information. But they are communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. So I'm hoping to just kind of touch on each of those 4 C's and give you at least a glimpse of what it would look like to use Flipgrid to help incorporate these skills into your teaching. So before we do that, I think it's just important to remember why 21st century skills are so important, that we need to be teaching more than just what the standards are telling us to, whether it's Common Core or whatever your school is using, if we have other people outside of Kentucky. But 21st century skills, we know that it is important now because of the world that our kids are growing up in. It's not enough to just learn those reading and math and science and social studies skills, but they need to be learning these other skills here. So we have learning skills, critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. That's what we call our 4 C's. We need to make sure that they're learning literacy skills, and not just literacy as far as reading goes, but being able to obtain and process information. They need to be able to use a variety of different levels of media and know how to navigate that safely. And obviously various forms of technology, which is what has brought us together for Kentucky Go Digital. And they also need to learn different life skills, such as being flexible and working with other people, taking on a leadership role, whether it is a louder leadership like Kentucky Go Digital and sharing, but also those quiet leadership roles as well. Taking initiative in their work, being productive at all times, and being able to communicate and be social with other people. I love this quote down at the on the right by George Couros. If you don't know who he is, he's the author of the book called The Innovator's Mindset. And if you have not checked that out, I would definitely recommend it. That had so many, just in the first section alone, that I had to stop so many times. There's so many aha moments and quotes that you just want to tweet them all. But this one especially, technology is not just a tool. It can give learners a voice that may not have had before. And I think Flipgrid connects perfectly with that, because it is a tool that you can use in your classroom that gives even your quietest students a voice. So it's really powerful. And I think once you learn more about it, if you're a beginner, that it will definitely change the way you approach some things in your classroom. So if you're unfamiliar with Flipgrid, Flipgrid is basically a website that is a platform for collecting and saving video clips created by your students. It can be used in a variety of different ways, but I'm going to kind of walk you through the basics first of just signing up and creating an account, and walking you through the desktop of just what you'll see once you actually get in there. So that I thought that was hyperlinked. Okay, we're going to get out of that really quick. And you just go to flipgrid.com. And this is the login screen when you go to Flipgrid. And there are a couple different things that you can do. If somebody else has given you a code, or if you create a class code that you'd like for somebody else to join, you can type in that code here, and it brings you directly to that Flipgrid grid where you would be recording a video, which I will show you in a minute. If you do not have a Flipgrid account, you're obviously going to go to the sign up today first and enter in your information. And then any other time when you go to this website, you will just go to the educator login. So if you click on that, it opens up a new window and will ask for you to log in. There is an option for students to create accounts, but I have never had to have them do that. There's a way to go around that unless you feel like they need to create an account. But I just have an educator login. The easiest way is to just log in with Google. If you're a Google user, then if you're already logged into your account, then it automatically just gets that information from you already. And you do have the option to log in with Microsoft too, or you can just enter in your email and your password. So once you log in, it brings you to your home page, which they call your grids. Up at the top, they have activity, and this kind of summarizes how many videos you've created, how many topics, grids, how many views you have of your videos, and it even gives you the amount of time that students are engaged by filming videos for your grids. And every once in a while, once you hit a major milestone, it will give you something that you can tweet out and celebrate that you've used, Flipgrid so many times. So this is just more for you to get an idea of the level of engagement among your students when you are on Flipgrid. The discovery tab is really helpful if you are wanting to see some other grids that people have already created and they are sharing their videos with you. So that is great for if you ever need some ideas to just get inspired by something. You can always just go through the discovery tab. You can search for different things, different topics, different audiences as far as what grade level you're working with. Different goals that you may have based on the grid that you're posting. So if there's ever a time that you want to use Flipgrid, but you just need some inspiration first, then I would suggest that you start there. And then every once in a while, if you do have something that has been a big hit, Flipgrid will even contact you. Like they have messaged me on Twitter before saying like, hey, try to, consider adding this to the discovery library for others to share. So this is a great way for teachers to collaborate together and just share ways that they are using Flipgrid in their classrooms or their schools on a regular basis to give you some ideas. But your main page is your grids. A grid is your classroom or your community of learners. Grids have topics, and then topics have responses. So I created, if you see down here, I started the year off with just one grid, just for my entire fourth grade. If you want easier ways to organize it, then you could do it by your different classes. So next year when I do this, I'll probably do a core 1 and a core 2 grid just to keep it easier for me to locate videos from that specific class. I had already kind of jumped into Flipgrid when I really, got into the details of organizing it. So that's something that I'll definitely jump into next year. If you caught my morning session, these are where my grids are for the Choose Your Own Adventure. So I'll go over that in a little bit when we talk about critical thinking, but those are those other grids that you see. But on my main grid, well, it gives you the option to create a grid. You just click the blue plus sign when you first create an account. Before you can post any videos or a topic for videos, you need to click the new grid first. So you have to have at least one grid going. The number of grids that you can have on your account depends on whether or not you have a free or a paid subscription. I have a paid subscription here, so it may look a little bit different when you first log in. I didn't actually pay for it. I had won a contest on Twitter actually in, I think, February. There's a Twitter account called The Two Guys. Sounds weird, but it's legit. And they run periodic contests for various giveaways. Sometimes it's a Flipgrid subscription. Sometimes it's Nearpod or Pear Deck. So if you don't follow them on Twitter, you should, and I'll find their Twitter handle and post it in the chat. But yeah, I had won a subscription to Flipgrid for a year from one of their contests. So this is just by pure luck. I obviously have a teacher's salary, so I don't shell out a bunch of money for a lot of subscriptions. But this is definitely one that when it does run out, if I can't beg and plead for the subscription to be renewed by my school, then I would definitely probably pay to renew it because it is worth it. So Heather, I'm seeing Heather's comment now about staff summer book studies. So I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, actually. So when you first create your grid, this is the screen that pops up. A new feature that they added this year was to add a co-pilot to your grid, and that's basically adding a fellow teacher or somebody else in charge to help you moderate the grid. That co-pilot also has the authority to post new topics just like you do. So if you are a co-teacher and you'd like to share your grid with another teacher, you now have the option to do that. If at any time, let's say at the end of the school year, you want to keep your videos but deactivate your account for now, you can always just click the inactive. So that way it doesn't show up where people can actually post videos, but you do have that stored for you. If you want to easily share your entire grid with somebody else, so that means that they would see all of the different topics that you have posted on your grid. then you can click the share button, and it does give you the option to either send them the code, and that's that code I was talking about in the Flipgrid homepage, that you could just enter in the code there and it would bring up that grid. You can send a URL, you can embed it in your website, you can give them a QR code. So basic ways that you can share resources with each other. You can do that same thing with your Flipgrid grid. Grid actions, if you are wanting to edit the basic info on your grid, if you have a description of some kind, if you want to duplicate your grid. So if I reached a point where I wanted 2 separate grids for my 2 separate reading groups, then I could just duplicate it. I'd still have the same topics posted, but then it would be duplicated now, so they're not all posting in one. And then there's various other things here. You can delete your grid too. I'm going to check the comments really quick. On the free One Grid, did the topics show up as separate exclusive web pages? So yes, Shelby East Middle, whoever posted that, that is the 2 guys' Twitter accounts. Follow them. They have contests and giveaways all the time. So when you have your free grid, the topics will show up just like this. So it's almost like if you had a bulletin board and then you had different post-its pinned. So that's basically what it is. So you will see all your topics underneath of this same grid. So basically you can do what I'm doing here on a free subscription. You just wouldn't be able to separate your grid by classes. And that's more of an organizational thing for you. Okay, so underneath on your grid, you have the ability to post different topics. So a topic is just a video prompt that you're wanting your students to respond to in video. So every time you want to create a new topic, you would click that blue plus button. And there are 2 things that are required. You have to title it in some way, and you have to give them a description. So let's say it's the beginning of the year grid. When you have a free subscription, I believe, and if somebody can correct me on this, I believe when you have free, you can only do 30 seconds or 1:30, unless somebody can correct me on that. The rest of these time slots go away. But those 2 times are usually the times that I use, depending on what you're actually wanting your students to do. But you do have the option, especially if you have the paid subscription, to select different time limits, and this just limits the student to how long they have to record. So obviously if they're answering a question or 2, oh, I'm sorry, thank you, 15 seconds and 90 seconds, thank you. So that makes it a little bit tougher because those are 2 bigger gaps there. But if they're just answering one question, you're not going to give them 1:30 to do it. Or if you're not giving them 5 minutes to answer a simple question. So you do have those choices there of changing the time limits of how long they have to take. If you give them a 5-minute limit, it doesn't mean they have to take the full 5 minutes. They can stop the video at any time. You can change when the topic will actually be displayed, in case you're wanting to display it later in the week. If you're not wanting to release it just yet, but you want to have that set up for you, then you can do that. And then you have your description box, and this is where you need to be typing something to describe the topic that you're talking about. So if we're just titling ours beginning of the year, then I can just give a set of instructions. So introduce yourself with your name, age, and favorite color. I'll show you a little bit later where you can actually put discussion questions and things like this in this box for other people to respond to. If you keep going down further, you can alter the privacy of the topic, whether or not other people can access your topic, if they can, or if it requires students to provide an email address. I teach 4th grade. As long as they put their name in there, I don't really need their email for anything, so I don't ever select that option. You do have the option of also uploading different things. I'm I'm not sure if this is in the free account or not. I want to say that it is, but if you're wanting to give a picture or a video that's prompting whatever they are going to be answering about later, then you have the option to do that too, which is really cool. So you could upload a picture and then give them, you know, a discussion question to respond to based on the picture that they're looking at. And yes, Jody, they tend to get, the longer the time that they're given, the longer they feel like they need to entertain you. So I got a lot of jazz hands in mine toward the end. So limiting the time that they get is definitely important. Down at the bottom, it does give students the option to add stickers and drawings to their selfies that they post after their video is posted, which I will show you in a minute. So these are just other controls that you definitely want to just check out and look at and just make sure that everything is set the way that you want it to before you release this topic. So if you create the topic, it gives you two different options to share it. So one is it's giving you the direct link to the grid. Now remember, that's like the bulletin board we're posting everything on. So that's just to your main grid. If you're wanting to just share this specific topic, so for people to just be able to introduce themselves, you know, in this topic, then you want to share this link here. You can share it by link, or you can do the same. Whatever is after this backslash here is going to be the code that they enter on that Flipgrid screen. So you can always just give them the code and just write it on your board, and they enter it in that way and find it. Or if you have Google Classroom or something similar to that where you can just share a link with them, then you can do that as well. So I've done it two different ways. I've done it where I've just given them the code and I just say, type this in, and they access it that way. But then there are other times when I'm kind of setting things up ahead of time and I just have it preloaded on Google Classroom where they can access it when they're ready to post and it's there. So it's just reminding you of how to share it. So if you accidentally close out of that, if you just go back to share topic, it gives you that same code and that same link again, and that code does not change. Okay, so then from there, let's say you click on that code there. Oh, it's password protected. Flipgrid had just changed recently, just to protect student privacy over the summer, that they were going to password protect everything, just to make sure that nothing was visible now that the school year is over. But when they post in a, trying to see if I can get an example of what a student would see. I don't think it'll let me. Actually, let's go to the discovery. Nope, that's not going to let me either. When they access Flipgrid, either on Chromebook or on an iPad, it will just bring up the topic. So they would open up this topic idea, and then when they get into it, there will be a green circle with a plus sign, and they just add that to prompt them to start recording their video. And then from there, it just prompts them to turn on the webcam, to request them to record them. They record their video. It gives them the option to record it again if they need to. They can watch over the video as many times as they want. And if they would like to scrap it and start over, then they have the ability to do that. And then once they're ready to post it, they take a selfie. History has shown fourth graders take about 15 minutes adding stickers to their selfie before they actually post anything. That's the most exciting part. And then once they post it, it'll actually show up on your grid. So just as an example, and my son is up from his nap now, so if you hear him in the background, that's why. So now if you have videos posted on your grid here, then you'll see if it has a green circle around it, it means that it has not been watched just yet. If it does not have a green circle, it means that you've watched it recently. So then you can just click on it and then access their video.
Some obstacles that Jacob faced were wrecks in the road and a stampede that he almost got killed by.
You have different options here of being able to respond by little emojis down here, so you can have your class vote or provide feedback for each other. As a teacher, you have the ability to add private video feedback. I tried this earlier this year, but the only way that they would be able to access their feedback is if they were to open the link from their email first. And we did not really use email this year, so that feature I wasn't able to really work around just yet and find as useful, but it does allow you to record a video back to them and giving them feedback. I would just give my feedback in person though. So I know I'm kind of going fast. I'm hoping I'm at least covering the basics, but I also want to show you some real life examples of how you can be using Flipgrid in your classroom. So just as far as the 4 C's go, there's different ways that you can use Flipgrid as a tool to allow students to communicate with you and also to each other. One of the things that I loved was starting out my year within the first couple of weeks was creating a me as a reader grid or topic, sorry. And so each student would be answering 4 different questions about who they are as readers, who do they enjoy, or what do they enjoy reading, where do they like to read. So this kind of gave me that first snapshot of who they were as readers. So this is Charlie.
Me as a reader, I like to read whenever I'm bored. I like to read in my room or in a quiet place. I like to read the Magic Treehouse books, and my goal is to get over 225 on my math test.
So that was just a good first impression for me meeting these new set of students and just how they feel about reading already. Elizabeth, I see that your question, you're confused about the password protection. This is new. It's a new feature, and it's not something that is going on during the school year. It was something that they just did over the summer to kind of prevent those videos from being seen and being passed around now that school is out and we're not with those students, if that makes sense. So I haven't really gotten into that much because by the time they switched to this feature, we were already out of school. But I'm assuming that you can just assign a password for other people to see your videos. I don't know if anybody else has experience with that, but it's not like that actually during the school year. It's just something that they did over the summer to protect student privacy. But that was one way that I had used. Let's see if I can get back to my screen. Flipgrid as a way of communication to introduce themselves as readers. October was Thank a Principal month, and so we gave the opportunity for students to thank our principals.
Hi, I'm Gracie. Hi, I'm Hannah. I like to thank Miss Stacy because she encourages all the TM geniuses here in the school. She's so encouraging, and she's kind to everyone. I like to thank Miss Lockwood because she's always helping students learn and grow everywhere. Thank you. Bye. Have a nice day.
So it's a good way for students to pair up with each other to communicate messages that they want to share out to other people. You start to see their little personalities come out that they're not always wanting to do in front of the rest of the class. So that's always something fun too. This is Rachel. She's if you were in my morning session, she's the one that was kicking my butt with the Choose Your Own Adventure series. But the end of the year, we started to do videos for future fourth graders coming in, tips that they need to learn.
Fourth grade is awesome, and I will teach you some ways to succeed. What helped me in fourth grade is all of my teachers. They've been such great help to me. The best thing about fourth grade is feeling like you're a leader. I used to not feel like one, but now that I'm older, I feel like one. Some tips I can give you is work hard and never give up. Also stay focused, or else you may get off track and you won't get a lot of work done. Sometimes that can get you in trouble. Fourth grade will fly by and be easy to you because you're amazing.
So that was a really cute video. That charisma didn't always come out with her that year, Lisa. I think you can agree. So you start to see some of those students that are somewhat shy in the classroom kind of come out of their shell with a tool like Flipgrid. Let's see. Moving on to opportunities for other students to collaborate. One of the big things that I did last year, and I really liked the project, but I wanted to incorporate Flipgrid into it this year, was after our unit on natural disasters. Last year, I had them kind of come together as a small group and create a news broadcast to report on a natural disaster. And last year when I did it, it was just a struggle for me to find time to record because I felt like I had one iPad in the classroom at the time. And so finding time for others that are busy working on something and then for me to record each group, it was kind of challenging. So this year I turned to Flipgrid as a tool to help students use this to record their own broadcast by themselves. And Kelly, I'm seeing your question. If I wanted to add a video to the school's webpage or newsletter. Yes, there's actually a way that you can take videos from Flipgrid and download them and save them as video files on your device. So you don't necessarily, you can share the Flipgrid codes, but you can also download them as videos as well. But the natural disasters, of course, it's requesting access. I'm not going to share that one because I had to sign out of my Google account for this broadcast. So, but this is just a link to a Google Doc. I'm sure it probably, if it's not working on yours, then I will link it. But it's prompting for them to choose a natural disaster that they would like to research and report on. They choose the city of where they're going to be reporting. So that brings in geography along with it, because obviously we had to talk about, you're not going to report on the eruption of a volcano if you're living in Cincinnati, Ohio. So they had to select that as well within their groups. And then within their groups, each team member had a specific role. So one person was the news reporter in the studio, one person was the field reporter, one person was the witness of the natural disaster, and then one person was the scientific expert to report on the science behind the disaster happening. So this led to some pretty fun, of course it's password protected. Hang on, sorry. This led to some pretty fun news broadcast videos that I don't think we would have gotten without the use of Flipgrid. They were pretty creative. So this was our favorite one. This one won if it were a contest. We had one girl who decided she was the witness, but she wanted to bring some life and character into her witness. So she created this character named Louise. That's not her actual name. And Louise is a little frantic in this video. Obviously, living through an earthquake is pretty traumatic. So you'll understand her franticness as she's running around. You'll see her moving around in the background and flipping around on the floor. This earthquake has really shaken her up.
Good afternoon. It is Cassandra Smith. It looks like we have a report from Los Angeles that we had an earthquake here from San Francisco. It started at 7:56 p.m. The damage was really bad. A lot of houses fell down, fires started to spread, and worse, as people died. People are going out into the streets away from buildings. Now let's head over to our friend reporter, Ella Brixby.
I'm here in San Francisco, California. I am seeing buildings that have fallen and fires have spread around the city. I am here with witness Louise Henderson. Louise, come on.
What?
Come on.
Hey, Dad. I was on Flipgrid Street. I was walking my little dog thinking I could songs. But when the earthquake hit, I tried to pick up this doggy, but it was impossible, of course. I saw people being patient and other people worrying, and I tried to find phone, but the electric's out. Doggy, come here! What are you doing? After the disaster, I need to find my family doggy. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Hi, brother. What is your name?
My name is William.
What do you do for a living?
I study earthquakes for a living.
How did the earthquake happen?
The earthquake was caused by tectonic plates that rubbed against each other and tried to go in different directions.
What did you use?
I used the seismograph, Richter scale, and Mercalli scale.
What was it rated?
On the Richter And the Richter scale, it was rated an 8.7. It was worse than the earthquake of 1906. This is reporting live from San Francisco. It looks like things have calmed down, and there are still fires. And people are looking for their families. That's all from here. Back to Cassandra Smith. It's back to Cassandra Smith. That looks like all we have for you today. We hope everyone stays safe. How did I end up here?
So that was Louise. She ended up being the class favorite, and we watched that video many times. But that is a character and personality that we would not have gotten if it weren't for Flipgrid, because that did not come out in a regular day in the classroom. So, but you can obviously see this is a way for them to have fun, but then for them to just kind of put together everything that they were learning. So before this actually happened, they had collaborated together. They each had their own assigned role, and they needed to use what we've read in their text, and then also additional research to decide what would their character, whether it's the field reporter, what kind of questions would they be asking, the witness, what would she actually be seeing from this disaster, or other things like that. And they had to decide together how they were going to write this together as part of a script, and then actually put it together in the recording. And yes, Lisa, I told you, she's, I think I was the only one that saw Louise this year. Nobody else got to see her come out. And if it's password protected or you can't access the Google Doc, I will fix that as soon as I'm out of this broadcast here. I couldn't be logged into my Google account and record at the same time for this. So as soon as I'm finished with this, I will update that. So if you can just keep your slides open or save them for later, I will definitely change that for you. Flipgrid is also a way for you to get your students to be thinking critically and sharing and talking through their learning. So one of the ways that I did this was during my Choose Your Own Adventure series. If you were in the morning session for elementary, you've already learned about this, and I'm not going over it again right now. But Flipgrid was a perfect way for me to hear from each student, have each student have a voice, and for me to hear them talking through their thoughts by answering some simple questions about things that they've read. So yes, it is going to show this one. This is Ethan, and he was responding to a skill question about specific skill in our Choose Your Own Adventure series based on one of the stories he read in Storyworks. And then he chose one of the reflection questions here to apply what he's learned in the story to a real life situation. So this was his response.
Henry is unhappy about his dad's new job because all he does is stay home and watch Henry and his sister. You can learn that something is cooler than it seems by reading this story. I would recommend this story to someone because it has a good moral to it, and I think that they would like it a lot.
So that was a quick and easy way. You see, it's 18 seconds long. That was a quick and easy way for me to hear from him. Does he get the skill or the focus of the story? Yes, he does. Can he find a way to use the story as a teaching tool for somebody else? Yes, he does. So this is a quick and easy way that, in a classroom of 29 students, it would be difficult for me otherwise to hear from each individual student in the time that we have. So with a quick recording of that video and then me taking time later that day to check on that, it was easy for me to see that he's reached that level that I wanted him to reach with that specific skill. And the last thing is some creativity. You saw some creativity already in our news broadcast, but we use this in other ways this year too. One of the first things we did was during the Super Bowl the week before, we had talked about the different commercials. That's obviously everyone's favorite part of the entire Super Bowl, not the actual game. And we talked about the creativity behind the commercials that we see and the reason why this is such a big time of year for TV commercials, because we know everybody's watching and people want us to buy their products. So we started talking about persuading others to think the same way you do and creating these different creative ads. And instead of just doing a paper poster, convincing someone to go buy your product, instead we created some videos along with it. So they each wrote, directed, and created all the props and everything and filmed for their TV Super Bowl commercial. We actually created it into an actual Super Bowl. So you can see on this Flipgrid thread here, it is showing you our first quarter round, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. So we had 2 teams go up against each other, and then we voted using Google Forms. This is the one. And then we had a top 4 of the teams, and we voted the winner based on that. And I even had some teachers and other staff members help us with the voting too. So it wasn't just our class. But the winner ended up being, there are 2 Lays teams. It was Lays number 2.
Bet you can't eat just one.
So that team was a little bit more advanced with their creativity, and they figured out ways to incorporate music along with it. They had a couple of different song choices before that one, but that one ended up being the one that was used. But like we were saying before, you can download the videos as actual videos saved on your device and not just a link. And so that's what we actually did for our voting. When I needed some help from staff members and then just sharing this with the class as far as our voting goes, I downloaded each Flipgrid video instead of just sharing the topic with them. So this way it was easier for us to see we're voting this video versus this one. So that was just an easier way for me to just kind of organize it. So you can actually download the videos, save them on your Google Drive, and then insert them into, your website or Google Slides or whatever you want. Other ideas that I think Heather threw out earlier was our summer book studies. These are other ideas that we have done, but I am not able to show you based on that password protection thing. I thought I could get around it with just my videos, but these other things weren't actually owned by me, so I don't have the password protection for those. But one of the things we did last year, starting last summer, at the end of the last year, we signed up. We had a selection of different books that it was just kind of thrown out and offered to our teachers that if you're interested in doing some kind of a book study over the summer to continue our learning together, but obviously take that slower pace because we are on summer break, we had the option to sign up. And so for those of us that did that, we were put into our book studies. We had a teacher lead each one. So last year I led our chat on Teach Like a Pirate. And we had about 15 people in that book study. Dave Burgess even joined us on Voxer, which was really awesome. But to kind of summarize what we've learned and putting it all together and sharing it with other people, we teachers had filmed a Flipgrid video and shared it with each other. And we had a lot of opportunities for each of us to respond to each other through that, whether we read the same book and we were piggybacking off of each other's ideas, or if we had read a different book, but we had questions to ask or just things to reflect on. It was a great way for us to share. I would say that if you are an administrator, for sure, if you're wanting your staff to use a tool like Flipgrid or any other for any reason, if you're wanting them to use it with their students, I would definitely recommend using it with your teachers first. This and our staff intros at the beginning of the year was just a great way for us as teachers to learn about Flipgrid as a resource and figure out how to use it. So that way we could take it back to our classrooms and teach our students. So one of the things we did before the school year started, we had a link sent out to parents through a letter. So they just had to type in the Flipgrid code. But to all parents and students in the community, whether they have been there or if they were new, they got a link to a Flipgrid. And on the Flipgrid was a video from every single cafeteria monitor, custodian, teacher, administrator, counselor, instructional assistants, any adult working in the building had recorded their own video on this Flipgrid, introducing who they were, telling the kids how excited they were to see them back in school and to explain to them what it meant to be a Taylor Mill genius to them. So this was a great way for us to introduce ourselves, to get our names and faces out there so that families were excited to get back into the building again. We had new people in the community that this was their first time experiencing anybody at this school. So it was a great way for them to feel like they were already involved in our community and accepted. And even we had some new teachers that's always kind of a nervous feeling of, I have a new teacher and I don't know who she is. I was hoping for so-and-so, but they're gone. That, we had those videos there of new teachers that they were able to introduce themselves, and those kids were able to already see their faces and hear about them and see what they're all about before they even got into the building. So that was definitely a powerful use of Flipgrid that it got people energized and excited about getting the year started. Two more ideas that you can use Flipgrid for that I've experimented with this year, but I would love to do more next year. So especially if you're in 4th grade, hit me up, is using Flipgrid to collaborate with other classrooms within your school, grade levels, or across other schools. So I had 2 different times this year. One was with Amanda Claire, and we had connected our classrooms together talking about an informational text that we had read in Storyworks. She even came up with the brilliant idea of doing some sketchnoting based on the main idea of the article and then sharing them their thoughts on Flipgrid. And so that was a great way for us to connect our different classes together. I did that with another magnet school as well. But it's definitely something that I'm wanting to pursue more. So that's even just within your grade level or even within, in your building, have kindergarten, send a video on to 5th grade. We had that this year for our testing buddies to get our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders excited about K-Prep testing coming up, which, as if they weren't already excited. We had our primary classes send Flipgrid videos to those older kids getting ready for testing. And it was just so cute and exciting to have little 5 and 6-year-olds on the screen wishing us luck on our testing. So that was pretty awesome. And even just something fun, building community within your classrooms is just sharing what you're doing over break. If you're going, on fall break, or some of our students get kind of nervous leaving 2 weeks for winter break, start a Flipgrid, and anytime they want to get on and share with the rest of the class something exciting that they've done, you have that tool to use. So I think with anything else, I'm checking comments in a minute, but I think with anything else, Flipgrid is just another tool that it can be really powerful and awesome, and you just have to just try it out once, and then you'll start to see other opportunities in your class where you can use that again. And I will stop sharing. I know we're out of time. Where's my screen? So we will stop sharing. Sorry, I know I was going through that kind of fast. I'm looking through really quickly. If you have any questions, you can feel free. I think we start in about 4 minutes for the wrap up for the day. Amy, good idea. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Kelly. If you have any other questions or anything, feel free to tag me on Twitter or email me at any time. Flipgrid is definitely an amazing tool, and I think you'll have fun using it. Your kids will too. So hopefully this was helpful. I think the last step for us today is if you go back to that virtual agenda, there is a closing session starting at 3:15. So I'm going to give you time to get over there and do that closing session in gratitude circle. So if you click on that last YouTube live link, you will be ready to close out an awesome day. So thank you very much for listening, and have a good summer. Bye.